Hello again, back to part two, Real Hi-Fi Help here. So, Group E, that is the very, very best selection of audio brands that I've ever heard. And this is without a doubt a lot better than the previous group. And here we're talking about middle um, to top class spectral equipment, Negra equipment, audio notes, condo equipment. I've put Oyed in there that make plugs, make some really good plugs, and Kronos, who makes turntables, awesome turntables. But don't forget AudioNote and Kronos. They basically make the best cartridges, turntables. The arms that they have aren't really that great, but they're more than good enough for the job. And of course, Sennheiser Orpheus, without a doubt, the best headphone and amplifier built into one. Simply awesome. No one gets close to that. Even Abyss with their headphones don't even get close to that kind of sound. And then we've got Isol 8. Isol 8 is an awesome brand. I think they're British. Yeah, I think they're British. They make some really good power supplies, especially what's it called, mini sub access. I have that currently in my system, and I think it's the best power supply on the market for the price. You might be able to get something that's 10 or 20% better, but not even the top gigawatts um, power supply conditioner can beat that. So that's just crazy good. So and power conditioner, power bar, whatever you call it, it's essential. It's the whole thing that drives the system. So if you ever want to use money on one or two things that are going to make your sound a hell of a lot better, use it firstly on the power supply, on that power conditioner. So many power conditioners out there that clean the sound up, but they make the sound digital by cleaning it up. I'm talking about Supra, MIT, stuff like that. I don't personally like that. Some people do. I think Isolate is the best brand for power conditioners because they make the most natural sound. It doesn't sound filtered through cheap components, making sound mechanical. So, yeah, just wanted to share that with you. So, general impression is that it is just the best, and it's simply because it's the combination of best parts in the world with the shortest signal. Where when you go down the groups here to DC and whatever, they're really focused on giving you a more broad experience with being more compatible, using upsampling, having a watt meter, having a headphone amplifier built into the amplifier. As soon as you have all this technology happening, what happens is that the the sound itself just gets almost completely destroyed by that process. So very important. Um, Let me just see. And of course, there's this very rare group that no one really will experience in their life. But I've had a chance to listen to a couple of those projects from some few brands out there, and yeah, that you can of course make some gear that's a hell of a lot better than the top audio node and Kondo and Kronos gear out there, but it's at a price that will most likely cost more than most middle class people's homes. So yeah, that's that. Now, a very interesting fact. I know this is a lot of text, and I'm gonna read it up as fast as possible. Some very interesting facts here. I thought you might want to know. I noticed when visiting several people with the gear above that I mentioned that you could take a certain brand, like for example NAD. NAD is very a regular good buy for the money kind of brand, and at one place it would only play at around 5% of its full potential, but hearing that exact same system at one store or at another store um, would suddenly sound a hell of a lot better. Like 50% of the potential was being fully utilized. So it's just to let you guys know that it has a lot to do with the whole setup. And I noticed that most people at home generally only were utilizing around 20% of their hi-fi systems. And I want to point out that it's usually at a you usually lose that efficiency at a point where most people don't really seem to get it. So it usually happens when you use Tidal. If you use Tidal, you're using an internet service that has bad source material. This is my opinion. It has to go through your Wi-Fi. When you're using your Wi-Fi, which is an uh, extra part that you add on top of the sound, it gives a sort of a digital artificial lag, and you can really hear that. So plus that's the fact that you have a player that's not interacting. The title player doesn't physically interact with usually the DAC that is used. You usually have some kind of generic profile that isn't custom made for your system. So I would usually suggest that you use something like Rune or JRiver, and you have some high quality files locally on your hard disk, and then you have a streamer that doesn't have um, a physical fan. And if you can use something like Audify Linux, that again gives you a lot more precise and natural sound. As soon as you get into that group of streamers, the ones that you can build yourself, and I'm not talking about streamers like Aurenda or Aurelix that cost maybe two, five, 10, or $20,000. You can make a streamer that easily beats those brand streamers for only like $1 or $2,000. You don't even need to put audiophile components in that streamer. Okay, so I typically I tried Aurenda and Auralex streamers, and I was seriously disappointed at the very fact that they sound so unnatural. Yes, there's a lot of detail. Yes, it plays better than Blue Sound. Yes, it plays better than Sonos, a hell of a lot better. And you can't compare it. But if you take the streamer itself, my God, there's at least 100 levels of streamers out there. And most of them, even the most expensive streamers that you can buy, I would say they only go up to about 25 out of 100. Most streamers have a lot of filters that basically suffocate the sound. So they solve a lot of problems for you, but also create a lot of problems. So that is the problem with a lot, not just streamers, but everything that's going on. Most things, most things that are going on in this hi-fi industry is that we're solving problems in a cheap way using cheap components. And when you've listened to a lot of music for many years, and you've been around listening to most brands, you start hearing the things, the mechanical things that manufacturers are putting into their units, like CD players, amplifiers, speakers, whatever. You start being able to listen to the the filter that the music is playing through, and you just have to listen to some pretty decent middle class audio note or Negra or spectral equipment, or even go even lower than that to YBA Abyss Sound, and you start hearing that there isn't all of this circuitry in the way. It's going basically from the power plug in a very short signal through the speaker terminals. Okay, you don't have all this negotiation. You don't have 500 different parts robbing you of that sound, and that's the problem. Is that the entire industry wants to solve problems using specifications, justifying everything on a technical sheet, saying this is better, this is better. Oh, look at us, we have some dampening power, dampening factor. Our dampening factor is 3 times better than the previous amplifier. Yes, that's one out of maybe 100 ways of measuring it, but trust me, I'm going to cover it just when I scroll down. I'm going to get to that point. So let me not get too much ahead of myself. Let me just say that at a demo show, for example, at a really good demo show, like for example in München, they have some really good demo shows of Negra or Spectral. I could hear when I was there, I could hear that even though that was basically one of the best rooms in the entire world, demo-wise, I could hear that it was only harvesting about 40% of what that system could do. Because I heard that system at some other people's homes that actually owned this equipment, and I'm telling you, they had a room that was a lot better, and they had some power filtering that was 10 times better, and a network that was 10 times better. And power filtering, network, and streamer, those are the things that are going to kill your sound if you ever deal with digital music, like for example Tidal or your own collection on your computer. So those 3 things, you have to master those 3 things, and you can get some pretty bad equipment actually outperforming some better equipment once you can control those 3 factors. Okay, so most people would go after an amplifier or a speaker, or then maybe a DAC or a CD player. That's the wrong that's the wrong sequence. So obviously you need a decent amplifier and a decent speaker and a decent DAC, like a decent one. Okay, but once you've got that fixed, make sure that the power conditioner that you have, and especially the power cables, are set up properly for your own sound equipment. So let me just get ahead with this. Where am I now? I've only heard one single place out of all these years where a system was running at 95% efficiency, and that was almost using the full potential of the system. Here, this guy had everything custom made and perfect, to a degree that no manufacturers could replicate. This guy had used thousands of hours, and you could really hear that he had tested basically everything in the world. I wouldn't say everything, but almost everything. He really knew his shit. And but what was amazing here is it was only a Yamaha receiver. I just couldn't believe it. So it was so mind-blowingly good that it took the most expensive Yamaha receiver, and like I said before, Yamaha is in Group E, you know. Wait a minute, I think it's in Group C. Yeah, it's in that not so good group, and so it basically took an amplifier that was 15 to 30 out of 100 on the 100 scale, and totally blew away the best gear that I have ever heard, which is usually around 65 to 90 out of 100. But I also have to stress that it's only because it was running at 95% efficiency. That there's basically no one in the world that will make this happen. Okay, only the most masochistic and insane people who have a lot of time and want to waste some money can achieve this. And my friend actually did this. I'm still amazed to this day that that he did this. But knowing what I know now, I can honestly say that even the best Group E brands, usually with their top systems, only run around 40 to 50%. So even if when you're going to shows and you're seeing $1 million piece of equipment like Negra DAC amplifier on a speaker that's probably $2 million, like a Wilson Audio speaker, and all of these cables that also cost like, I don't know, $500,000. Even that, in that gorgeous room set up perfectly, I mean, there must be like $5 million in that room, some of those rooms, you know. Even those rooms only run at around 40 to 50% efficient. So the stuff that you hear at shows can easily get a hell of a lot better, because those rooms usually share the same power, and they have some very bad power filtering, and they usually have some kind of a online streaming kind of thing going on. And if they don't, they usually mix things up in a way so that they put some bad power cables that don't really fit with their equipment. So basically what you're hearing is the hi-fi version, the hi-fi show product version of what it is they're selling. So usually that would be a more hollow, empty, fake kind of sound. So if you like that sound, just know that it's gonna get a hell of a lot better once you get a hold of it and you can control these hidden aspects that I've covered here. Like I said, but know this: in order to run your system so efficient, you have to do some crazy things to eliminate all that hidden noise, like I talked to you before, to fully tune in the sound. And you basically have to try everything on the market, like me, which is a full-time job. So you don't need to reach this point by no, what I mean is that you don't reach this point by being lucky. Okay, at this level, it's all about time, having enough time, and understanding all the changes that you've made, and digging insanely deep to harvest that hidden sound. I mean, just to give you some perspective of what exactly I mean, this is just to give you an analogy. I would guess that there are about 10,000 walls that need to be broken down to achieve the best possible sound ever. And most people that are new to hi-fi only break down around 50 to 100 walls, and then they get stuck. So the good audiophiles, the ones that I know, and probably some of the lucky people, they get to break down like 100 to 500 walls. But then there are like the freaky ones that get very, very lucky. They might break down 1,500 walls. The guy that I visited, okay, he was so in tune with what he was doing and every single thing that was going on. So it almost seemed as if he had broken down half of the walls there, okay? And I'm saying half of the walls because he was basically on a short budget, and he didn't really have money to use on proper equipment, you know? I mean, he had Yamaha, and they don't make the best equipment out there, okay? You can do a lot better by just choosing one of the other brands that I showed you. Now, working on things that even I, one of the most dedicated audiophiles, never heard before. Just to explain that. This guy was working on stuff that I had never even heard of before. Some of the people that I know who have unlimited amount of money can't even go past 2,000 walls, and that's totally true. I've seen so many people that have almost unlimited amount of money, and they just can't get it right. They keep getting equipment like Martin Logan, B&W, Macintosh, Paslows, Mark Levinson, and they make some pretty good equipment. Let me just